All right. So we take the prayer, please, and we begin. Master of all worlds, highest power, merciful parent of compassion, in your presence, eternal one, source of strength for us, as you have been for our ancestors, we very humbly acknowledge you. What are we? What is our life? That you have done such great kindness to us. Therefore, we place our appeals before you, so that you may forgive and absolve us of all our faults and failings, that our faults never become barriers between us and you. And may it be your desire to prepare our hearts to feel awe and love for you. May you listen to these words of ours, and may you open our encumbered hearts through the mysteries of your Torah. May this our study be a source of pleasure before your throne of glory, like sweet incense. May you shower down upon us the light of our soul source in all the ways by which we define ourselves. May the sparks of your holy servants, through whom you have revealed these words to the world, shine and sparkle. May their merit, their ancestors' merit, and the merit of their Torah, their innocence, and their holiness stand for us, so as to prevent us from stumbling when we study these words. In their merit, may our eyes be illumined by what we study, as in the saying of the sweet singer of Israel, open my eyes, that I may gaze into wonders of your Torah. May the words of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart be acceptable to you, my rock and my redeemer. For it is the Eternal who grants wisdom. It is from his mouth that knowledge and understanding issue forth. Na 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 na. Ah, na na na. Na 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 na. Ah, na na na. Ah, na 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 na. Ah, na 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 na. Ah, na 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 na. Ah, na 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 na. Ah, na 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 na. Oh, no, 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 no. Ah, na, 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 na. Ah, na, na, na. Ah, na, 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 na. Ah, na, na, na. Ah, na, 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 na. Ah, na, 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 na. Ah, na, 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 na. Ah, na, 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 na. Ah, na, 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 na. Ah, na, 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 na. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 no. No, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 no. Ah, na, 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 na. Na, na, na. Ah, na, 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 na. Oh no 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 no. Oh no 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 no. Oh no 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 no. Oh no 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 no. Oh no no. Oh no 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 no. Oh no 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 no. Good evening to everybody. We're going to continue where we left off, and maybe what we should do is we should just go backwards. No, I'm sorry, not go backwards. I was going backwards. I have to go backwards. We were on 388, and we talked about the 27 letters of Hebrew. It's 22 letters, and then there are 5 letters that are doubles of certain of the 22 letters that have a different form. They are final letters. So Mem has 2 forms, and Nun has 2 forms, and Chaf has 2 forms. Tzadi, Min Safach. Those are the letters that the 5 letters that have doubles. We learned about how they array themselves and are animated, given life by the 3 core letters of God's name, Yud, Hey, Vav. Hold on 1 second, please. And of course, the 3 letters of God's name, Yud, Hey, and Vav, come out to be 4 letters because the Hey is doubled, and they create the space, the 4 sides of God's throne, and they animate the letters on the different sides of God's throne to feed into that final Hey, to feed into Shekhinah. And we got to the top of 388, where we said that there are the high letters up above, and then there are the low letters down here below. And they echo, as we've said before, the relationship that everything above has a correspondence below. Everything below corresponds to something above. And the valence then is that the above letters are the ones that pour into the letters below. That's the male active agents of God's potencies, all flow into and unite with the feminine, the female. And our handy term for the female is Shekhinah. Shekhinah is then the one who encompasses all of these energies that unite with her, so that she can then dispense, put out into this world, into the lower world, the small letters, the low letters, which enunciate creation, right? Which end up creating the expression of God's presence in this world. So we've looked at this many times, and that's an inadequate kind of summary of what we were looking at before. We're going to continue from the second paragraph on 388 to continue with applying this theme of the male infusing into the female all of the positive, active energies that are then necessary to gestate and then to put forward to create new life. We're going to take that theme and apply it specifically back into our Torah portion and back into the story of Rachel giving birth to Joseph. So that's the verse that we now come back to. That was the highlighted verse. Where was it? No, it's going to be highlighted next page. But this is what we're up to. It's that God remembers Rachel, opens her womb, and she's able to finally have a child after yearning for a child for so long. So now we have that verse with under the perspective that's just been created. So the second paragraph. Perhaps we have somebody here who would like to. Okay, Beryl, I didn't even finish my sentence.
Vayiskor Elohim, God remembered Rachel. Since this depends on the flux of destiny, so that with her, Zechira, Zechira, remembering is mentioned, and Yud-Hey Vav-Hey attended to Sarah, not from the flux of destiny.
Okay, so what we have is a comparison of two times in the Torah where a woman who has been barren then is able to give birth to a child. So in the case of Rachel, it says, "Vayiskor Elokim et Rachel," and God remembered. The word that's used is zechira, remembering. Vayiskor, like the word yiskar, right? May God remember the deceased that we cherish their memories and so on. So that's the word to remember. But when it came to Sarah, when Sarah is finally able to have a child and she gives birth to Isaac, it says, "Vashem pakad et Sarah," Asher Amar, that God visited or recalled, and here the translation is attended, took care of Sarah, just as God had promised, and she has a child named, and the child is named Yitzchak. So the question, the implicit question here, just by putting it in next to each other, we've had this discussion before as well. What does it say? See above, page 174. So why the change in language? Why isn't either let the Torah's idiom be, since Sarah comes first, Vashem pakad et Sarah, Vashem pakad et Rachel, or let it be the other one. Let it be Vayiskor Elokim et Sarah, Vayiskor Elokim et Rachel. Why the difference? What's the significance of using those two different verbs for the two matriarchs who finally have a child? So we have this phrase here, right? Since this depends on the flux of destiny, that's why for Rachel, the term Zechira is appropriate. But for Sarah, not from the flux of destiny. When it came to Sarah, her giving birth didn't come out of this flux here, meaning a gushing forth of from destiny, but from something else, whatever that is. This is going to play out in the next two paragraphs. But what's this business about flux of destiny? So look at 557, the note, please.
Flux of destiny, mazala, on which childbirth depends, according to Rava said, life, children, sustenance do not depend on merit, but on mazala, destiny.
Okay, so he's translating mazala as destiny. More ready translation that we're used to, this is the word mazel, right? So you need mazel. You need luck. So what Rava is saying is, guess what? The world doesn't operate completely as a meritocracy. It doesn't treat all the good people well and all the bad people badly. And these kinds of fundamental wishes that people have, right? To live, to be alive, right? And why do some people live a long life and some people don't? The answer is that's the luck of the draw, mazel, right? So why, children, same thing, mazel. It's not whether you deserve it or not. It's not what you've done or not. And then finally, food. How well are you doing? So the answer in the Talmud is, guess what? It really depends just on mazel. So mazel, another way to translate it, is fate, right? The way things are just fated to happen. We have a question here in the chat. Reb, can you somehow reconcile these two translations of mazel? Luck and destiny seem very different concepts. So that's true. But maybe I was already on the way to doing this. When we say luck, we think, well, I don't know about different people actually think about luck in different ways. Is luck random? Is luck arbitrary? Or is luck actually some kind of, frequency that one gets on? Gamblers, unfortunately, think that luck actually has some kind of power and that it can be appealed to and that it can be connected to. It can be, ridden. You could ride a wave of luck or something like that. What's the song, right? Luck be a lady tonight, etc. So, so is luck completely just who knows, whatever happens, happens? Or does luck refer to some kind of dark force that we don't quite understand? And that's why it seems random and arbitrary, but it really actually has some kind of, if not rationale, then it has some place in the economy of existence. It's a place. Okay, now Jen says, 1 second, or luck is just a matter of statistical probabilities. Well, then I don't know if it's luck, right? If it's statistical probabilities, then I mean the luck is to my mind, again, in a superficial way, luck is when you beat the probabilities, right? Because if you just simply say, it's probable, if you get a higher education, you'll get a better job, right? So,
well, I'm thinking more along the lines of
what?
I'm thinking more along the lines of if you get a hot streak, yeah, that was probably going to happen at some point and it's going to go cold. That's like if you roll the dice often enough.
Right. So that comes back to the other side of it, right? That it just sort of it's random in the sense that we don't know when the streak will happen. We don't know what causes the streak. It nothing. That's the nature of reality. The nature of reality is that there are clusters of happenings that bunch together one way or another. Right. This is, in a bigger view of things. And then we think that there's something literally fortunate about it, that means more than that, but it doesn't. But as I say, other people really believe that it is meaningful, that there is something going on here. So the word destiny partakes of the luck idea simply in being out of your control. Right? If you want to call it luck, it means you didn't earn it. It's not because of your skill or because of your goodness or because you paid, extra, to get a better, set of dice. You just got it. So it's not under your control. We could think of it as luck, or destiny is something that's decided beyond you, beyond your control. So that lack of control, then what's your attitude toward it? So yeah, Seth.
on that point, in traditional societies that I've had a chance to live in, you know, a common phrase would be, you know, l'homme propose, Dieu dispose, right? And that is this more fatalistic sense, but it's fatalistic in not a randomness, but there's some bigger power there so to me, that's more the communication here of this concept. It's not just random, right? There is some sort of fated script out there.
Right. So, and that's the paradox, back to what Jen was saying about statistics. That's the paradox, that the more, high altitude your perspective is, the more you can start saying, well, actually it fits into some kind, the arbitrariness is actually itself a pattern, right? It's going to always be that way, that there'll be these streaks and this kind of stuff like that. So then the question becomes not so much, is it programmed, but is there a programmer, right? Is there actually some kind of intentionality? Is there some kind of conscious drive that is not you, that's beyond you? And that's the Dieu dispose, right? That is this higher power that has maybe some kind of plan that we don't understand. It looks incomprehensible to us, or it looks arbitrary to us, but that's the way God wants it. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not arbitrary. Maybe God wants it to be arbitrary, but that satisfies God's will. So, this is our struggles with how we come to grips with that. When we use the word for the Zohar, the word mazala, as we're going to get to in the next paragraph, tries to take the rabbinic terms, which sound a little hard-headed, and a little out of our control, and sort of through the back way, make it accessible to some kind of relationship that we can have with it. So let's look at the next paragraph.
Now you might say,
No, the next paragraph in the note.
oh, okay, wait, wrong place. The word mazala means constellation, planet, planetary influence, destiny, guardian angel. In Zohar, it is associated with the root
Nazal,
to
right?
flow,
Nun Zayin Lamed.
and often refers to the flow of emanation from the world of the male, which comprises Bima through Yesod, the divine phallus. Yesod conveys this flow to Shekhinah, thereby engendering souls of the newborn.
Right. So now what we do is, instead of taking, that's why he translates it as flux of destiny, which is a little bit of a kind of an oxymoronic, paradoxical phrase. The flux part is the word that the Zohar it uses to understand mazal. Mazal is that which flows. In modern Hebrew, nozlim is liquids. Right. So a nazelet is a running nose. So that's, it's flowing out, right? So nazal is the verb, and mazal is now the noun of flowing. And what flowing is it? So the Zohar explains the flowing is the divine flow. It is God, but since it's the divine flow, on the one hand, it is God driving the universe, making the universe happen, making the universe move. But since the Zohar believes deeply in our uniting with the divine, the flow is amenable, not just susceptible, but amenable to being affected by us, right? So that's the idea of Torah and mitzvot. That's the idea of doing God's bidding. When we do God's bidding, then God is happy, and the flow gushes forth in a way that is good for everybody and good for God. In the Torah Sparks that I wrote, this week, This is part of what I touch on, and of course it's coming out of Ramban, out of the mystical tradition, that God needs our participation to, in some manner, regulate and direct the flow. So the whole predeterministic, fate quality of destiny is sort of softened quite a bit by understanding this as it's the mazal. It is an active, directed force out of God's own being. So God's the boss. God is the origin. But in the back of our minds and hearts, we know that we can have some partnership in driving that mazal. So now what God does here for Rachel is that God remembers Rachel. So we think of remembering as a mental retrieval of some thought or image of the past. That's not the way the Zohar understands, and that's actually not the way the Torah thinks about it. What is Exodus 15:8?
Nitzvu komonet no slim.
There you go.
In the Shira.
That's right. From the song at the Red Sea, right? That the walls of the split sea were liquid walls, right? So standing up there.
They
yes.
ran.
Right. So, well, nitzvu is they stood. And the nozlim is the flow. So, DeMille got it exactly right. So back to here. So the Torah and then the Zohar's following doesn't see remembering as just some kind of, again, like I said, a mental phenomenon, but remembering is an active process that does something. When we're supposed to remember Shabbat, it's not simply, oh, I forgot today was Shabbos. Oh, now I remember. No, remember Shabbat means do something to establish Shabbat in the world and in your life. That's what remember means. Remember the Exodus from Egypt. Do something in your life so that the Exodus from Egypt makes a difference in what you're doing, in what you're living, right? The Seder is an elaborate act, not of mental recall, but of active repossession of the significance of something in order to make a difference. So what the Zohar now says is because that's an active process, it's valenced male, right? It's understood to be a masculine activity. And it's no coincidence that the word remember has at its root, the root is Zachar, which is male. Zayin Chav Reish, the three-letter root of remembering, is the same three-letter root that means a male, masculine person, right? Or a masculine anything, right? For us, it's very fortuitous that remembering has the word member in it, right? The male member is activated here in order to bring the flow out of God's being channeled into Rachel, right? So the remembering is in many ways inseminating, right? God remembers Rachel. That's the mazala, that's the flow, that's the flux. God pours into Rachel the life-giving energy, which finally enables her to bring out life, to make life. So then the question again becomes, so what happened to Sarah? I mean, it was a bigger miracle for Sarah than it was for Rachel. So how is that not depending on mazal? How could it possibly not have any connection to mazal? And yet we have the word pekida instead, right? Hashem pakad et Sarah. So let's we're going to go through the next two paragraphs to get a little bit of an answer. And we had a little bit of an answer also back, like whatever it is, 200 pages ago. But who, pardon the pun, who remembers? So okay, now you might say,
look,
Good.
children.
look, not look, children. That would be nice also, but no, look, children depend.
Children depend on the flux of destiny, not below. Wasn't that true here with Sarah? However, it is written,
Va Hashem.
and Yud Hey Vav Hey all as one.
All right, it says Va Hashem pakad et Sarah. So that Va Hashem means something special. We'll get to that in a second. But let's just read the first part of it. So you might say, therefore, if children depend on mazal, on that male drive, that male push, that male, inseminating flow, and it doesn't depend on below, right? It doesn't depend on the one who's on the bottom, which is the female, right? If that's the case, so does that apply now to Sarah, because Sarah is not mentioned as having the zachar, the zchira applied to her? No, that can't be, because it says V'Hashem pakad et Sarah, right? The Yud Hey Vav Hey, four-letter name of God, is the male, but the Vav is to add to the male. Hashem Uveit Dino is what the Gemara says. So therefore, the Zohar understands that, meaning that this is the unity of male and female. The unity of male and female brings out the possibility of life. And of course, that we understand, pretty literally as well. The male can do all the inseminating they want, but if they inseminate a piece of liver rather than, I just thought of that myself as an idea. Me and Philip Roth. So if you don't inseminate the right receptacle, you're not going to get any life. So of course you need the female. So the female is not the active partner, but the female is the necessary partner. And then that certainly would apply to Sarah, that Shekhinah was involved in Sarah's miraculous giving birth. But now we come back to the same question. If it's a uniting of Shekhinah with the male, then what happened? Why isn't it Vayiskor? Why doesn't it be? Why isn't the remembering acknowledged? So now we're at the top of 389.
If so, why is attending mentioned?
That's right. By Hashem pakad.
Because surely remembering happened previously, and this key was handed below, as is written. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will hear to you at this appointed time, whom Sarah will bear to you at this appointed time. Similarly, later, since remembering was mentioned in mystery above, later in mystery of female, attending is noted, so that consumption of all be as one. Consummation of all will be as one.
Okay. So what the Zohar says is, of course there was chira. Of course there was that male flux for Sarah, except it was mentioned already. That flux actually was predestined, if you want to say. It was brought out, it started flowing when God promises to Abraham that Sarah will bear a child even before she conceives. Right? So when it comes to Rachel, It's a simultaneous lower upper correspondence. Jacob sleeps with Rachel. Jacob, the human being, inseminates Rachel, and that lower phenomenon corresponds to the upper phenomenon of God's male energies inseminating Shekhinah, who then releases the life-giving capabilities to Rachel. So there's that mirror, not mirror, but a corresponding, a parallelism. With Sarah, it is actually a bigger miracle. And the Zechirah, the remembering, happens already before that act of union, of sexual union between Abraham and Sarah. It's already started by God speaking to Abraham and making the promise. This is my covenant. What's the word covenant in Hebrew? Brit, right? So that's the Brit, that's the Zachar. That's where the Brit is inscribed. That's God's actively intervening to make sure that this new life will take place. And that's where we get it, in a certain sense, back to, a closer idea about destiny. There's a decree here, right? The decree of God's determination. I'm going to make this happen. Right? And you will simply be puppets to act out my plan, right? So that's why when we finally have Sarah conceiving, all it is a revisiting. It's God making sure that God's process that was started, the flux that was started, the flow that was started before, that it finally consummates, that it finally reaches its intended goal. Larry.
Two things. One thing is, and that's why it says Hashem Pakad Tzara Kasher Amar.
Right, Kasher Diber. Right.
That was said as it was already.
As God had said, just like God had promised, just as God had said so, he now is coming back to make sure that happens. Absolutely. So it's mentioning it right there in front of us.
Right. And then the other thing I just noticed that not every paragraph, but almost every paragraph ends with a word one, unity, like chad. And it just keeps going. In other words, it keeps wanting to say everything is one, everything is one. I don't know, it just occurs to me.
Right, excellent. So if you look at the first paragraph, I wanna even go back a little bit. 386. Last couple of words in that last paragraph on 386. What does he say? Essence of perfect unity. Right? Top of 387, the end of that top paragraph. Single mystery, right? Three in a single mystery. It's three, but it's really, right, one. Sounds a little, we hear that in another religious tradition, but there it is, right? So there's the unity again, right? If you look then again on 388, top of the page, all consummately one. And then this last paragraph on 388, and Hashem, all as one, right? And then finally the paragraph that concludes this little section here, all will be as one. So very good, you're right. This is a refrain that happens in the Zohar so many times, and that's one of its most important lessons that it's trying to teach. It will complicate things. It will make things so this piece and that piece and this piece and that piece, and then it will in the end always claim no, but it's all one. It's all one. Don't go making mistakes of thinking that each thing has its own separate existence, its own separate reality, its own separate meaning even. It's simply our In another place that I don't know, I think we had it. I keep getting confused which texts I'm reading, which text with whom. The term for this world, we had it before. Alma de Piruda. This is the world of division. This is the world of separation. But what we have to understand is that this separation is simply a refracting of something much, much, much more unified, not more unified, something unified that then get refracted to look like it's separated. The way that a prism takes the light and separates it out, right? So the separating of it out is, it has its own time to be meaningful and affect us, but we should never forget that the source of those refracted rays is a unified light, is one light. It's been mentioned many times, it's a classic image. The beautiful stained glass windows that were created in the Middle Ages were used obviously to glorify the church and glorify the religious traditions that were being promulgated. But some people used that phenomenon to teach that idea of the oneness of the multiple, right? The light that we in the inside space, looking through the window, so we see the red pane and we see the yellow pane, we see the blue pane. But if we were outside of our enclosed finite space, we would see that the light is actually not red or blue or purple or green separately. It's all one light. It's all a unified light that then we separate out. And then the claim then became, and then every religious tradition is simply another piece of glass with its own coloration or its own window, and then the other one is another window. We're all refracting the same light, the same common unified light. Yudah Levi explains that actually is the significance of the four-letter name of God, as opposed to Elohim. Elohim is a name that signifies multiplicity, right? It's a plural, right? The Almighty God, Elokeinu, right? It's really mighty forces. But we use it, of course, as a name for God, who's only one. Shema Yisrael, Hashem, Elokeinu, Hashem, Echad. Right? So the eternal is an almighty God of multiple identities and forces and meanings and impacts. And yet it's really all one eternal unified God. So Yudah Levi says that's the difference between Hashem and Elohim. Elohim is how anybody might individually, any group might specifically process the God idea. And then the Yud Hey Vav Hey idea is, I am what I am. I am all of those things. I am every single color. I am every single image and more. And yet it's all just one, all together one. Yeah, good, thank you. All right. So we're going to continue now looking at that verse a little bit more.
Where are we?
We're in the middle of 389 with the indentation. God remembered Rachel.
God remembered Rachel. Rabbi Hia opened. I have also heard the groaning of the children of Israel, whom the Egyptians are enslaving, and I have remembered my covenant.
So here's another example of remembering, right? So this is Shemot, where God at the burning bush, it goes like this. Oh no, it's not at the burning bush. It's afterwards. It's after Moses has actually failed in his first mission with Pharaoh, right? So he said the Hebrew goes like this: V'gam ani shamati et na'akat b'nei Yisrael, and indeed, also I have heard the crying out of the children of Israel. Asher Mitzrayim avidim otam, for the Egyptians are enslaving them, oppressing them. Va'ezkor et briti, and I have recalled, I have remembered my covenant. Okay, so there we have again brit, and we have the word va'ezkor, and I remembered. So just to repeat what I said before, we sometimes say, God, why have you forgotten us? We forgot all about us. You're paying attention to something else. So this sounds like, oh, God remembered that God made a covenant. Oh, God had forgotten about it for a while. God was preoccupied. No, when it says I remember, it means I am now taking action, right? I'm now putting my plan into play. Hold on a second. Yeah, okay, good. So that's now a starting verse for us to use as a comparison with the verse over here about God remembering Rachel. How's that going to work? Let's see.
Va'ezkor, I have remembered. Here, Zekirah, remembering, for this is above. Since flux of destiny above, Dekirah,
In the Hora, right? Male.
Dekorah, male, contained with
Conjoined.
attending in exile below in female. Similarly, Vayiskor Elohim, God remembered Rachel, as is said by Eskor, I have remembered my covenant.
Okay. So what's going on here? We have the word Zechirah, and in Aramaic, a Dalet changes, the Zion and the Dalet are related, and they change back and forth. So Dechorah is the same as Zechor, right? As the Dalet and the Zion. So it's male, right? So now the Zohar trying to unpack, what does this remembering entail? So the remembering comes from the mazal. It comes from the flowing, the male flow. Okay, that is conjoined. It has to be combined, united as one with the female. That's the pekidah. That's the act of reinforcing, right? Holding on to and what's the word? When gestating the flow, right? Letting the flow take effect, right? In exile below, in female. So the female is Shekhinah. What does it mean in exile? How is that related to Shekhinah? So if you look at the note 566, go ahead.
Here, Zechirah, remembering, for this is above. The word Zechirah, remembering, alludes to Zakar, male.
Aramaic, Dechorah.
Dechorah, the divine male potency united with Shekhinah, who is associated with the root Peked, attend on the flux of destiny.
Above. So we did that already. Check. Okay, now, where's this exile thing coming from? Go ahead.
Shekhinah accompanied the children of Israel in their Egyptian exile. Rabbi Shimon, son of Yohai, says, "Come and see how beloved are Israel in the sight of the Blessed Holy One." Wherever they went in exile, Shekhinah accompanied them. When they were exiled to Egypt, Shekhinah was with them. When they were exiled to Babylon, Shekhinah was with them. And even when they are destined to be redeemed, Shekhinah will be with them. Here, Rabbi Hia indicates that the male divinity responded to the exile by uniting with his female partner, who was suffering along with her people. This reunion initiates the redemption of both Shekhinah and Israel.
Okay, so the notion of exile with Shekhinah is here, nicely expressed in the rabbinic statement, and the rabbi who's, attributed with that statement is none other than our own Rashbi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and he says that Shekhinah always accompanies, the divine presence always accompanies Israel, the children of Israel, wherever they may have to be, suffering. So they're in exile in Egypt, Shekhinah is there. They go and they get the exile to Babylonia, to France, to God knows where. Shekhinah is always with the suffering people of Israel. That's one of the basic meanings of the burning bush, that God is stuck in this thorn bush, that God is suffering along with the children of Israel who are stuck in the thorn bush of the oppression of Egypt. So God says, I am with you always. Which part of God is the part that is always with us? That's Shekhinah. That's the aspect of the divine that is present, the divine presence. Divine is with us. But so therefore, God now is remembering, God is initiating a new flow of energy to unite with Shekhinah in order to save Shekhinah and the children of Israel together. Because Shekhinah is not leaving without the children of Israel. So there's two things again happening: the reuniting of the male lover and the female lover within God, right? The Kudsha B'richu and the Shekhinah, and the reuniting of Israel with God, for Israel to be freed, to get out of Egypt, out of the from under the oppression of the Egyptians, to be able to be God's people. And again, like I wrote about this week for Torah Sparks, what does God say at the end of Shema? I took you out of Egypt to become your God, so that I could become your God, so that you would make me into your God, so that we would unite together. So this is these oneness actions. But I want to talk about a little bit more about what does it mean that Shekhinah is in exile. So historically speaking, we can talk about Shekhinah being in exile whenever we got kicked out of the land of Israel or France or Spain or wherever it was. God is with us in a certain way, right? In that Shekhinah way. But in another very, very basic way, Shekhinah is always in exile. Shekhinah is in exile by definition because she cannot stay united with her lover at all times. This is something that, again, we've touched on many times. The self-enclosed unity of God is shattered by God in order to create a world. So before that shattering happens, Shekhinah is really just totally united and in some way undifferentiated. The union between Shekhinah and the Kudsha B'richu is echad. The way that the Torah at the beginning of Genesis says that when the two people decide to set up home together, v'hayu levasar echad, they will become one flesh, right? So that becoming one flesh, before the creation of the world, God was one flesh. God was one divine flesh, so to speak, right? And I'm, without being, no, we're not talking flesh. God was one. God was one. So there was no differentiation. There was no separation. Shekhinah is tasked with the identity of being the one who has to leave, the one who has to go out and be the administrator of a separate world, a separate existence, right? To create new life and then to care for that new life. When all that Shekhinah really wanted in the beginning was just to hug and caress her lover. So this is the exile is actually before we ever get to human history. The exile is in the very nature of God's decision to split God's self up and go out of God's own self. So Shekhinah has that burden to bear from the very, very beginning. And she does it to the best of her abilities. She does it as best as she can. And if she's allowed to, right? She will be there in some sense, whether we like it or not, but whether we'll actually feel that she's with us and appreciate that she's with us and let her be with us. Now, how many times you hear stories of somebody who wants to help somebody else? They care deeply about the other person, but the other person won't let them help. So that can be very exhausting, it can be very upsetting, it can be very disappointing, and sometimes tragically, it kills the relationship. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the relationship exists, the caring continues, the love is still there, the constant checking, about what's happening with this other one is there, whether the other one appreciates it or wants it or allows it to happen. But how much better it would be if that person would allow it to happen. If that person would allow the caring one to actually act out a role of caring and helping. And again, I'm not talking about taking over, and I'm not talking about all kinds of dysfunctional kinds of things. I'm talking about if it could, be beneficial, then how much more beneficial it would be. So that's what's going on with Shekhinah. Shekhinah is there, and sometimes we hold hands with Shekhinah and allow Shekhinah to give us that extra grip, that extra warmth, and that extra support. And sometimes we resent it, or we ignore it, or we think that we need to somehow prove something to be on our own, and we don't let Shekhinah be present. But Shekhinah will nevertheless always be present. That's her job, and that's something that, to a certain degree, she would have loved never to have, but she has it, and she embraces it. And that's her very essence. So exile below in female is actually essential, and not just a historical accident. All right. So now what the Zohar says is just like that Egypt image is there, so too over here, God is coming to be present and to vitalize and redeem Rachel. Okay, we can keep on going. 390.
Come and see what is written. I have surely attended to you. I have surely attended. But attending inheres in female, who at that moment was in exile. So how could she say, I have surely attended?
Okay, so look at 569.
How could she say, I have only attended, since Shekhinah herself suffered exile and bondage along with Israel? How could she attend to Israel and promise to redeem them? She couldn't redeem even herself. And after all, a prisoner cannot free himself from jail.
Okay, so when God at the burning bush says, and I want to just find it here for a second, right? God says, Pakod pakadati etchem ve'et ha'asui lachem b'mitzrayim. That's the translation of surely attended. It's a doubling. We have that so many times in the Torah, and it's translated surely, right? Pakod pakadati. I have attended, right? I have really attended to this. So that's that word pakad, right? And that's the word that the Zohar keeps insisting applies to Shekhinah. So now the Zohar is asking, wait a second. So if the white knight on the horse is coming to rescue the damsel is the male, then how does this over here mean that Shekhinah is saying, I have surely attended? Shekhinah is powerless here. Shekhinah is caught in the same grip of oppression and constraint that that Israel itself is. That's why she's in the thorn bush. She can't get them out. So what kind of promise is Shekhinah saying by saying, "Oh, I've got you covered. Pakod pakadati. I'm attending you. I'm paying close attention to unfolding this plan." You know, this is an impossibility. We need somebody else to do this, not Shekhinah herself. So here we go. Here, however,
one should contemplate a mystery of wisdom lies here.
so stop, there's a semicolon, right? Here, however, one should contemplate, right? Let's slow down for a second. Let's take a deep breath. Let's mull this over, because there's a mystery of wisdom here. So let's see if we can discern it. Let's see if we can get into this mystery of wisdom. Let me explain again, back to what Larry was saying before. The word mystery for the Zohar is intimately tied to the word oneness. All mysteries are to figure out how things cohere, how everything actually comes together. So a mystery of wisdom means that somehow or other, this wisdom will lead us to seeing connections, how everything is all tied up into one. Okay.
Here, however, no, we already had that. Should we
Yeah,
do-
we could read it again. It doesn't hurt.
Here, however, one should contemplate a mystery of wisdom lies here. If she was in exile, how could she manifest to Moses here?
Okay. So now the Zohar starts its argument, starts its line of reasoning. So where is Moses when we have the vision of the burning bush? When Shekhinah manifests to Moses, where is this? It's on Mount Sinai, right? It's out in the wilderness where he's tending his sheep, and this revelation takes place there. But that can't be, right? How could that possibly be? Look at verse number 570.
If she was in exile, how could she manifest to Moses here? If Shekhinah was
How could she manifest to Moses in Midian? See that? Are you seeing that? That's the last line on the note there, on the left-hand side.
burning bush?
If Shekhinah was confined to bondage in Egypt,
Yeah.
keep
How
going.
could she manifest to Moses in Midian at the burning bush? Naturally, she now reveals herself only in the land of Israel. See the statement attributed to Rabbi Elazar, son of Sadok in Mechilta.
Mechilta, Pischa. Go ahead.
Shekhinah is not revealed outside the land of Israel.
Okay, so this note brings up two questions. First of all, how can Shekhinah be in two places at the same time? If Shekhinah is locked up in jail in Egypt, trying to tend or attend to the people of Israel, how could she also be in Midian talking to Moses? That's number one. Number two, in general, Shekhinah only communicates and reveals herself in the land of Israel. Outside the land of Israel, she's mute. So how could she be talking to Moses in this place? This is very special. We had the same discussion actually a little while back when we asked about Ezekiel. How could God reveal God's self to Ezekiel in the river of Kvar in Babylonia, when they had, the only revelations happen in the land of Israel? So, but here we have this double question. Hasn't Shekhinah been incapacitated? Hasn't Shekhinah been overtaken by the Egyptian exile? Right. The only time she actually is free to communicate is when she's able to be united with the land of Israel herself. Right. So there's a two sides to the same coin. Okay. So how could that be? So how could she say, back to the text now, how could she say, I have surely attended? You got that? Third line on that paragraph.
Third line in which paragraph? Oh, I have surely attended.
Right.
But so we have learned, when the sun radiates, he is in heaven, while his power and energy prevail throughout earth. Similarly, the whole earth is full of his presence. As long as the temple stood, the whole earth is full of his presence, the Holy Land. Now that Israel is in exile, she is above, while her power envelopes Israel, protecting them, even though they dwell in a foreign land.
Okay, so now what the Zohar says is something that, like, any Hebrew school child could say, is, what are you talking about? God is everywhere. How can you say no? How could, if Shekhinah is in Egypt, how could she be in Midian? Of course she's everywhere, right? So, but the Zohar says it in this kind of special way, right? Back to the light imagery, right? The radiation of light. The sun is up in the heaven, but the radiating of the sun permeates throughout the entire world, right? So this is, the image of the flow of God's energies may have a particular localized source, but it then continues to expand outwards. When there was a temple, then, and this is Isaiah's vision of going up into God's palace, that is, again, the parallel between the lower and the upper. There's a lower temple, and then there's the temple up in heaven, right? Where we say, where he hears, Kadosh, 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 Hashem Tzvachot, Melo Chol Haaretz Kvodo, that the whole world is full of God's presence, full of God's glory. So that's in the land of Israel. So the land of Israel is where all of the forces again are united. Shekhinah is called the land of Israel. Shekhinah is that place where all of the energies are concentrated, but then are bounced back off, reflected out, and spread to the rest of the world. But when Israel is not in the land of Israel, then we have a two-phase dynamic. On the one hand, Shekhinah can't dwell in the land of Israel. Where does Shekhinah then dwell? So the answer is she is above and below. On the one hand, she retreats. And this reflects again, literally reflects, a a rabbinic concept, which talks about the fact that there's this progressive distancing of the divine presence. And there's a constriction, a contraction of God's presence in the time of after the destruction of the temple. It's no longer obvious. It's no longer radiant. God's presence is no longer radiant all over the world. On the other, it's the opposite. We feel that God is absent. We feel that God isn't anywhere where we need God to be. And in that aspect of our feeling a lack of God is imaged here by Shekhinah has run away and gone back up into heaven. So she is holding on for dear life to her lover, because guess what? Her earthly lovers have spurned her. Her earthly lovers have rejected her. So she goes back home to be loved and to be accepted. Nevertheless, as I said before, she can only be herself. She, after all, is the Earth Mother. She is the mother of all of the earth. She is the mother of the assembly of Israel. She is the mother of the children who were created through an eternal covenant. Therefore, she has to always be connected with her children. So, like a sun that's over there, but radiates over there, so too Shekhinah can be over there, and yet her presence can also be felt somewhere else. Right? There's a line of radiating energy that flows from one to the other, but the concentration changes, right? The localized center of the energy is volatile, right? It can change depending on us, depending on how much we work to make a home for Shekhinah. That, of course, is like that's our topic in our Torah readings from last week through for the next few weeks. That's the Mishkan. The word Shekhinah comes from that same word. Right? Do we let God's presence dwell in the world, or do we chase God's presence away? So this is the struggle, and this is where the Shekhinah is saying, yes, I'm stuck with you in Egypt, but Moses, I really am doing the best I can to move things along, right? To be of some kind of help. All right, we're going to stop here. And miracle of miracles, as far as I can tell, we're actually scheduled to meet next week. Yeah, thank you. Right, so I look forward to that. And Zygas into everybody, okay?
I have a question.
Now you have a question after I said that everything is finished?
Right.
Go ahead.
Well, I was raising my hand, but you didn't see.
I didn't see.
All right, it's very quick. Could it be that God and Shekhinah are everywhere at all times? And they can be everywhere and anywhere at all times, but the people are distracted by something else. It's not that they're not there. It's not that God and Shekhinah aren't there. It's just that the people can't see them because they're doing whatever it is they're doing that they're not supposed to be doing.
Yeah, no, I think that's very good, right? That's a good way to look at it. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Zygas into stark.
Now you can close.
All right.